Welcome to NarrativeNook where enchanted stories come to life. If you enjoy our stories, please subscribe, like and share to support our channel. Enjoy listening.
Later, you're going to need to escort them to the airport. As for the old man they mentioned, I'll need to get in touch with him. This might warrant a trip on my part, so just cool your jets, Clark. It's not like half a day is going to make a difference. But Clark was itching to find Carol. However, remembering the danger of the triangular zone, Clark said, "I'll fly there myself tonight. Tomorrow, I'll meet up with Romeo directly, and you should stay out of it. The triangular zone is lawless, and I don't want you to get hurt." "You sure I'm the one in danger here?" Arabella couldn't help but smile. "All right, I'll call the old man. You go and comfort the couple. They need someone to talk to." Arabella called the old man several times without success and decided to go there herself. Sending the money over with her crew didn't seem respectful. She checked the address. It was a mere 20-minute drive. Personally delivering the money would also get this weight off Taylor's shoulders. On the way, as Jerry was driving, Arabella saw someone by the road asking for help. A city bus had collided with a luxury car. The young woman from the car, no more than in her early 20s, was standing by the road shouting for help. She was asking if any passing car could help transport the old woman in her car to the hospital. The collision had triggered her heart disease, and she was short of breath. Their car had broken down and couldn't start. Bypassers only suggested she call the ambulance. Some stopped to watch, but no one actually stepped forward to help. Traffic was slow due to the accident. The girl was so desperate that she was almost in tears. If necessary, she planned to take turns with the driver to carry the woman to the hospital. Seeing that the girl was a Solteran, Arabella asked Jerry to stop the car and went to see what was going on. "Do you need help?" At her words, the young woman got excited and hurriedly asked, "Are you a doctor? Can you help? My old lady was going for a medical checkup, and we were rear-ended by that city bus. She can't move and says she's having trouble breathing. We're scared." Arabella went to the car and saw the old lady sitting in the back seat, her face red from lack of oxygen. Open the car doors, windows, and sunroof to let in fresh air. After saying this, Arabella took out an acupuncture kit from her bag and quickly began inserting needles into the old woman. The driver was anxious and asked the young woman, "You're letting her use acupuncture on the old lady? What if something goes wrong?" Arabella heard their conversation and calmly said, "There's no time to get her to a hospital now. She'll be out of breath in less than 3 minutes. Don't worry, I know what I'm doing." The young woman, being a Solteran herself and seeing Arabella's calm demeanor, believed her. She even defended Arabella to the driver, saying, "Let her try. She carries an acupuncture kit with her, so she must know medicine." Who would carry an acupuncture kit around unless they were a doctor? Especially few in the country would be proficient in the mysterious Oriental medicine. She trusted Solteran traditional medicine. After a while, the old lady gradually began to breathe, and her eyes started to open slightly. Due to lack of oxygen, she felt dizzy and had a headache. In her daze, she saw a beautiful girl treating her, who oddly resembled her daughter. She must be hallucinating. After finishing the acupuncture, Arabella said, "This old lady is very weak. She needs to take more care in her daily life. Moreover, Crestor is not helping her current condition. Also, Gilenia and Onluor tablets are suggested to be replaced by other medicines. Otherwise they will increase her physical burden, making her feel tired and drowsy every day, and have chest tightness and bitter taste in her mouth." The young woman with short hair was stunned. She didn't expect Arabella to describe the old lady's symptoms accurately. Moreover, the medicine that the elderly lady ingested included the 3 types she mentioned. How on earth did the girl know about them? And how did she pinpoint them? It was mind-boggling. The driver was also wide-eyed, although he didn't usually assist the elderly lady with her medication. But hearing the girl talk so authoritatively, he couldn't help but feel impressed. She knew even this. Are you perhaps a medical professional? If these 3 drugs are not used, what other alternatives are there?" The short-haired woman latched onto her, bombarding her with questions. "Could you possibly leave us your contact information? If you can help our lady with her illness, our master will surely reward you handsomely. The lady's health can't be restored in a day or two. When Arabella had taken the old lady's pulse earlier, she had discovered many issues. If they were to treat her, they would need to constantly adjust her prescription and even monitor the old lady's reaction to the medication, which could be time-consuming. "Miss, it's time to get in the car." At this point, Jerry saw that Arabella had been delayed for too long and couldn't help but remind her. With the constant flow of cars, if someone with ill intentions were to spot her, Miss Bella would be trailed by unshakable trouble. "Could you leave us your contact information?" The short-haired woman was somewhat reluctant to part with the beautiful young girl who appeared to be in her teens and yet had such a deep understanding of medicine. But Arabella thought that if a villain spotted this scene, and they couldn't find her, they would surely trace their way to the old lady's family. She didn't want to implicate the innocent. To avoid causing them trouble, Arabella gently declined. Anyone with a basic understanding of medicine could solve this problem. She wasn't lying. Although the old lady's condition required time and energy, it wasn't difficult to manage. It could even be said that it was much easier than treating Grandma Shirley's illness. The short-haired woman watched her get in the car, seeing their vehicle disappear into the distance, only then realizing she hadn't thanked the girl. "That girl's got a stunning look and aura." The driver, watching the direction Arabella had left in, couldn't help but praise, "Young, beautiful, and proficient in medicine, that's a first for me. Stop staring, and she's got a chauffeur. She must be a young lady from a well-off family." The short-haired woman added, "Such a pity, I forgot to thank her. Let's get the lady to the hospital first." They'd noticed the girl's license plate was local. If their master wanted to find her, it should be a piece of cake. Inside the car, as Jerry drove, he glanced at the girl in the rearview mirror. "Miss Bella. There's no need to report this, and it's a trivial matter." Arabella seemed to know what he was going to say and immediately provided an answer. Jerry was taken aback, not expecting Miss Bella to have prophetic abilities. "I'll handle it." Jerry secretly heaved a sigh of relief. With Miss Bella's words, he could breathe easier. The car soon arrived in front of a mansion on the outskirts. The mansion seemed to carry a sense of age, exuding a faint historical and nostalgic ambience. Surrounding it were similarly old mansions. At a glance, there seemed to be 20 or 30 standing proudly in this area. Every mansion had 5 or 6 steps leading straight up, a design style that harked back to days of old. "Just wait for me in the car." Arabella stepped out of the vehicle, ascended the steps, and rang the doorbell. After a moment, with no response, Arabella rang the bell twice more, thinking that the old man probably wasn't home. She noticed a gap under the front door and thought of writing a letter and slipping the money through the gap. Just as she was about to get paper and pen, an elderly man appeared, shuffling up the stairs. One hand held onto the railing for support, while the other carried groceries from the supermarket. He squinted at the young woman standing in front of his house. Hearing the noise, Arabella turned around. "Excuse me, are you Grandpa Arno?" At the sound of his native language, Arno dropped his guard and asked warmly, "Which family are you from? Why are you standing at my doorstep?" "Professor Earwood sent me," Arabella offered, seeing him struggling with the heavy groceries and moving to help. "May I carry that for you?" "Logan sent you?" Arno clung onto his grocery bags. No, you're a young lady, you can't carry this." Arabella's hand brushed against his, and she pulled back, taking a moment to look at the elderly man in front of her. He seemed to be in his 70s, with a head full of white hair and a hunched back. It appeared as if the few steps had drained all his energy, but something about him struck Arabella as odd. Let's talk inside." The old man was panting slightly, leading the way inside with his grocery bags. Arabella followed him in, closing the door behind her. "No need to take off your shoes, you'll laugh, but I haven't swept the floor in days." The old man laughed heartily. "Make yourself comfortable. I'll put the groceries away. You're Logan's daughter, right?" "No, I'm not." Arabella took control of the conversation, asking casually, "I heard you live alone?" "Only this old geezer left. My son and daughter-in-law live far away. Logan is such a good tutor, and I found him through my son, you know." Logan must have told you that my grandkids only speak foreign language, and I can't communicate with them. Arabella smiled slightly. It's quite good for your age. Arno put the groceries away, washed his hands, and poured a glass of water for Arabella. I don't have much to offer, but you can have some water. His movements were slow and clumsy. After placing the glass on the coffee table in front of Arabella, he sat down and asked, Logan sent you because? He and his wife have to leave unexpectedly and can't tutor you anymore. Arabella took out the note written by Taylor and the remaining money from her bag. They wanted to apologize personally, but they couldn't make it. They tried calling you, but you didn't pick up, so they asked me to come. This is the remaining tuition fee. Mr. and Mrs. Earwood insisted that I hand it to you. They're leaving. Arno's eyes showed a hint of sadness. Seeing Arabella place the money on the table, he waved his hand and said, Tell them there's no need. It's not much. They should keep it for their journey. I'm glad to have known them. Perhaps the thought of being alone again saddened the old man. Arabella replied calmly, I'm sure you'll find an even better tutor. Thank you for your comfort. Arabella picked up the glass and looked around the house. You keep your home very clean. It's okay, ha ha ha. I used to farm for decades. My son finally made it, and I followed him abroad, but I just can't sit idle. The flowers and plants outside are all grown by me. At first glance, Arabella was taken aback by the profusion of flowers and plants outside. It was nothing short of a charming little garden. I feel terrible for making you travel all this way. Would you like some water? Oh, I also bought some bagels from the supermarket. Let me get them for you. The elderly man rose shakily. No need to trouble yourself. Arabella picked up the glass and immediately detected the faint scent of chamomile. She looked up at the man's retreating figure, bending down to retrieve the bagels from the bag, a task that seemed to require some effort. I buy these bagels often. They have a decent taste. He shuffled back towards Arabella, extending the bagels towards her with a warm smile. Try them. Ignoring the water, Arabella set down the glass and responded with a smile. Chamomile and opium poppy, is this how you typically welcome guests, Grandpa Arno? The old man was surprised that she had identified the scents. Moreover, the woman's clear and bright eyes showed no fear of her current situation, a testament to her strong psychological quality. What are you talking about? Arno feigned ignorance. Besides these two, you also have incense burning. Ha 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 ha. The elderly man put down the bagels, laughing heartily. When did you notice? At the door, Arabella replied calmly. You mentioned that you've been gardening for decades and often do household chores, yet your hands don't seem like they've seen much work. So, Arabella hadn't offered to help him with his groceries and deliberately followed him inside the house, curious to see his next move. When you entered the house and put down your things, you acted tired and leaned on the side table. At which point you switched on the incense burner. The elderly man seemed even more intrigued. And then, when you went to pour the water, you first fetched an empty glass, filled it with water, and dawdled before coming out. By then, you had already spiked the drink, right? The old N's smile grew even more benevolent. Since you knew something was off, why did you dare to enter alone? You're quite bold. If I didn't come in, wouldn't I have missed the show? Ha ha ha. You're a remarkable young lady. Why not join me? I could use an apprentice like you. So, what do you do for a living? With your intelligence, you must have some idea? The old man suddenly made a move, swiftly and not at all like a man in his 70s. Arabella retaliated, and a fight broke out in the living room. After a few exchanges, the old man asked, What is your relationship with the leader of the Triangular Zone's Mafia Flame? He looked at her warily and suspiciously. Arabella raised an eyebrow. You know him? Answer my question first. The old man scrutinized the woman in front of him. Aside from her long hair, which he hadn't seen before, her physique, posture, and even her moves were strikingly similar to the Mafia Flame's leader. But wasn't the Mafia Flame's leader a man? Could this young woman be his lover? Or perhaps his direct disciple? But the Mafia Flame leader's moves weren't that easy to learn. Who was this young woman exactly? Did the Mafia Flame send her to meddle in his affairs? What's the deal between Mafia Flame and Carol? The old man pressed on. Is Carol with Mafia Flame now? I have no idea what you're talking about. Arabella quickly retorted. She racked her brain but couldn't place who this old man could possibly be. She hadn't crossed paths with anyone this aged before, so how could he have guessed her connection with the head of Mafia Flame? No matter who you are, you're coming with me today. He had to bring this young miss back to his superiors. She was suspiciously skilled, her moves eerily similar to the Mafia Flame's boss, and she remained calm under pressure. Clearly, she had been specially trained. If she was indeed sent by Mafia Flame to meddle in their affairs, then it was perfect timing to strike back at Mafia Flame. It was time to settle old scores. Arno unleashed his fiercest moves against the young miss but found her to be an excellent fighter with quick reflexes. The fragrance of the narcotic in the air seemed to have no effect on her. Who the hell are you? Arno was beginning to feel outmatched. Arabella had the upper hand with every move, and he felt more and more powerless to turn the tide. This girl was too formidable. Arabella planned to take him down with a few swift moves but was caught off guard when Arno hit a switch, causing the ceiling to drop a dozen iron balls, each about the size of a burger. If they landed on her head, she'd be a goner. After effortlessly dodging the iron balls, she found the old man had triggered another switch and escaped through a hidden passage in the wall. To avoid being led on a wild goose chase, Arabella decided not to pursue him. She pulled out her phone and called Clark. Clark, I've met this Grandpa Arno. If I'm not mistaken, he's likely part of an organization and deliberately got close to them. On hearing this, Clark instinctively asked, Are you hurt? No, but he got away. I didn't feel like chasing him. Arabella added, He approached them under the guise of a pitiful old man, probably trying to dig out information about Carol from them. This could mean that Carol has something they want. Clark had an idea of what those things might be and was determined to find out. Be careful on your end, and get them on a plane soon, Arabella instructed. Okay. Clark's eyes were on the dozens of men in black suits approaching him as he stood in front of the ranch house. He said softly, Bella, I'm feeling a bit peckish. Could you grab me something to eat on your way back? Hungry? Arabella found this strange. After all, a doting brother like Clark wouldn't send his little sister running errands for him. The only reason he asked her to buy food was likely to buy time, to prevent her from returning too soon. So, there must be danger at Clark's end. Okay, Arabella hung up the call promptly. She turned to Jerry, who was waiting outside, and said, On your way back, get some food for Clark. Try to get there before I do. Huh? Jerry was confused. She asked him to buy food and also to get there before she did. I'll take the car first. Arabella grabbed the car keys from his hand, hopped in, and sped off toward the ranch. Miss Bella. Jerry finally caught on and started to panic. At least give me a ride. There are no cabs here. Looking at the tranquil countryside, Jerry felt like crying. He pulled out his phone to call his subordinates. Out on the ranch, Romeo's men formed a straight line, vowing to protect the folks inside the house at all costs. Dozens of men clad in black approached them rapidly like bolts of lightning. Some of them slipped through the gaps, heading straight for the door. Clark was there, standing firm, not allowing them to cross the threshold. What do we do? Is Clark in danger? Taylor hid by the window, peeping out. He was worried but also impressed by the kids' loyalty. He'd risked his life again and again to protect them. Given his character, Taylor secretly vowed that if they could find Carol unharmed, he'd be all for this match. We're causing trouble for them again, Logan said, his worry apparent. The fight outside was fierce. Clark's arm had already been slashed. Blood was gushing out. Clark. Taylor's heart ached at the sight of all that blood. The kid must be in so much pain. But Clark didn't stop. Two of the men in black tried to take advantage of his injury to break in, but he deterred them once again. Things were looking grim. Just then, the sound of rotor blades came from above. Both Taylor and Logan noticed the helicopter. Their rescue was here. Some of the men in black fired at the helicopter, but it didn't prevent it from landing smoothly. The sound startled the cattle, causing them to scatter. "We have to take Clark and Arabella with us," Taylor started to say, but then remembered that Arabella hadn't returned yet. She quickly pulled out her phone, hands shaking as she dialed the number she remembered. "Auntie," Arabella's voice came from the other end of the phone. For some reason, hearing Arabella's voice caused Taylor to break down in tears. All the worry, fear, and anxiety seemed to lessen at the sound of her voice. "Arabella, come back quickly. The helicopter is here," Taylor said, her voice choked with tears. "The situation has changed. We all have to leave together. Hurry up." "I'm on my way," Arabella said, her voice calm and comforting. "Don't worry." Although it was just 2 words, Taylor broke down crying again. "Okay, be careful on your way back. We are surrounded. When you get here, get on the helicopter first. Don't foolishly try to rescue us. Remember." "Is Clark okay?" Arabella asked gently. As soon as Clark was mentioned, Taylor looked outside again. Clark had been wounded by another man in black. It seemed like he was a bit outnumbered. Romeo's men were tough, but they were outnumbered, and some had already fallen. Taylor's voice broke even more. "He's hurt. Don't worry, I'll be there soon." Arabella had already floored the gas pedal. Speeding was a small matter that Romeo's men would handle. After a while, Clark managed to take down 7 or 8 of the men in black outside. Panting heavily, he opened the door. "Quick, I'll cover you. Get on the helicopter." Seeing the blood-soaked figure before her, Taylor's tears flowed freely. "Clark, forget about us. You go first." More men in black were appearing wave after wave. There was no way to hold them off. They were, in all likelihood, not going to make it to the plane. "Come on." Clark had no time for lengthy discussions. Grabbing each other by the arm, they had barely made it out the door when a knife came slashing down. With a swift kick, he sent the knife-wielding assailant sprawling and urged them towards the plane. Blood stained his arm, and his clothes were already soaked in crimson. Taylor was in tears, and Logan found a bitter taste in his mouth. If it weren't for Carol, this young man wouldn't be risking his life to protect them. He was indeed in love with Carol, so deeply that it extended to those she cared about. The goons from Romeo were badly injured, but seeing Clark trying to escort the elderly couple to the plane, they gritted their teeth, rose from the ground, and fought to protect them. Taylor looked at the carnage, unable to comprehend who her daughter had crossed. It was terrifying. They were still some distance from the plane, and Romeo's men, already injured, were dropping like flies. Soon, a dozen or so attackers were rushing towards Clark. One of them drew a knife on Taylor. They didn't want to kill them, but to trap them so they could be taken back to face their fate. Seeing the threat to Taylor, Clark pulled her to his side. A knife came down on his shoulder, making him gasp in pain. "Clark." Taylor was terrified. The young man was clearly in agony but was still hanging on. Logan saw another attacker aiming for Clark and pushed him away with all his strength, oblivious to the danger behind him. He was kicked to the ground. "Logan." Taylor wanted to help him, but more attackers were coming. She closed her eyes in fear. Clark pulled Taylor aside, evading several knives, kicked away the attacker going for Mr. Earwood, and then shoved both Taylor and Mr. Earwood behind him. "Run!" he shouted. Left alone to face the 24 attackers, Clark knew he might not make it out alive. Thankfully, his sister had yet to return. Otherwise, he would be filled with guilt for the rest of his life. He wondered what treats she might bring him and whether he'd have the chance to enjoy them. Taylor was frozen in place. Clark was clearly no match for the attackers, especially injured as he was. His blood stained the grass beneath him, making him look like a tragic hero. "Go." Logan knew that they would only hinder Clark if they stayed. With a tug, he got Taylor moving. "Clark will find a way. He loves Carol. He will find a way to survive." "Clark." Taylor cried out in pain, tears blurring her vision. "You have to protect yourself. We're waiting for you to celebrate your wedding. You have to live." Hearing this, Clark broke into a smile, both charming and enigmatic. Did this mean he had the approval of his future in-laws? If so, He could die without any regrets. Run, Logan urged, pulling Taylor along. Glancing back, Taylor saw a dozen attackers rushing at Clark. A silver flash and a knife sliced open Clark's back, leaving a stark trail of blood. As Clark staggered under the pain, more fists and blades were aimed at him. Clark. Taylor could run no further. She couldn't let Clark sacrifice himself for them. How could she live with that for the rest of her life? Just then, the urgent roar of an engine was heard closing in. The girl behind the wheel was as cool as ice, her delicate face betraying no sign of panic. The car circled the mob of men in black at an alarming speed, picking off all but one. Arabella, having emptied her firearm, discarded it and exited the car, helping Clark to his feet. "You all right?" Clark glanced at his sister, suddenly alarmed. "Didn't I tell you to come back later?" No sooner had he spoken, a fleet of cars was seen approaching, a fresh wave of black-clad men. "You take care of Logan and Taylor. Get out of here." Did they dare to harm Clark? Arabella lifted her gaze towards the approaching vehicles, her eyes cold as ice. None of these men would be leaving. Without another word, Clark guided Logan and Taylor up a flight of stairs. Meanwhile, Romeo had sent additional reinforcements, tipping the balance in their favor. Clark saw the elderly couple onto a plane. Taylor, clinging onto his hand, implored, "Let's go together. I need to find Carol first, and you go on ahead." Clark knew Taylor was worried about him and his sister. He flashed a charming smile, reassuring her, "We'll be fine, don't worry." "But your injuries?" "I'll get them bandaged up in a bit. I need to help Bella first. I'll be in touch." Clark signaled for the people inside to close the door. Taylor pounded on the door, watching Clark's retreating figure, once again crying out, "Be careful, Clark, always be careful." 10 minutes later, Arabella and Romeo's men had finally dealt with this wave of enemies. Looking at the dozens of bodies strewn around, Arabella felt a sense of relief. It was lucky she had returned. Otherwise, who knew what would have happened if she continued to run after Grandpa Arno? Just then, a plane descended from the sky. "Miss Bella, Mr. Macmillan has prepared another plane for you, heading directly for the triangular zone." A bodyguard respectfully informed, "Please follow me. We also have a first aid kit on board to assist Clark." Arabella, supporting the bloody figure beside her, asked, "Can you walk?" "I'm fine, it's just a scratch." Clark winced as he accidentally pulled at his wound. Arabella smirked, "Too bad Carol didn't get to see that. We couldn't let her see that, and it would upset her." Clark winced again as the cold wind whipped at his wound. The pain was excruciating. It reminded him of what Jack had once said. How much pain must Arabella have endured when she faced those dangers alone? How did she bear it? Arabella helped Clark onto the elevator. "Miss Bella, here are the snacks you asked me to get." Jerry arrived, panting heavily, carrying an assortment of treats. Arabella took them, thanked him, and guided Clark onto the plane. "You had someone get food for me?" Clark was surprised. "Weren't you hungry, Clark?" Clark was at a loss for words. He had wanted to delay Arabella's return, but she had sent someone else to fetch food. It made sense. What could he say to his sister? On the plane, Arabella tended to Clark's wounds. Each gash was a shocking sight. Who knew Clark could endure so much? Any other person would have been immobilized with pain after a couple of these wounds. Clark's patience was commendable. Thank heavens his wounds were not too deep. Those thugs weren't out to kill him. "What's on your mind?" Clark couldn't help but ask. Those guys were likely trying to bring us back alive, hence the non-fatal wounds. Arabella concluded, then added, "If it hurts, let me know." "No way." Clark started, but as the medicinal powder hit his wounds, he clenched his teeth against the pain. Even though Arabella tried to be as gentle as possible, the stinging pain from the medicine was enough to break him out in a cold sweat. It was excruciating. Arabella, seeing his face, had to stifle a laugh. "Just let it out." "I won't laugh. It doesn't hurt at all," Clark managed to say, and his face contorted in pain. "We'll be in the triangular zone soon. Follow my lead when we get there, Arabella smiled, continuing her treatment. It's a bit chaotic, don't go wandering off on your own. Clark was speechless. Why did it sound like she was well-versed in the triangular zone? Just then, Clark's phone buzzed. It was a message from Serena. Private jets had satellite communication, meaning they could access the internet and make calls at any time. Clark, struggling due to his injuries, took out his phone and saw multiple messages from Serena. Clark, Mom told me you and Bella are in Iridia. I have the weekend off, can I come and join you guys? I really want to take pictures at the Art Palace and feel the sea breeze at Mac Beach. Please let me come. I promise I will be back after 2 days. Excited. JPG. Begging.jpg. Clark knew that Serena must have heard about him and Bella being in Iridia and assumed they were on vacation. Hence the plead. He responded, Bella and I aren't here for fun. We have some work to do. Next time, I promise we'll take you with us. What are you and Bella up to? I want to join. Take me with you. I promise I won't be a nuisance. Sad.jpg. Disappointed.jpg. Clark responded again, it's important, stay home this weekend, keep Mom and Dad company. I have to go, talk later. His arm and shoulder were injured, and even typing caused him pain. Yet he managed to respond to his little sister with utmost gentleness and patience. But Serena, on the other end of the phone, felt his indifference, her heart sinking further. So, Clark didn't even want to pretend to comfort her anymore? He didn't even want to chat a little? Clark put the phone down, have something to eat, then rest on the bed. Arabella, packing up her medical kit, advised gently, I'll have someone assist you later. Okay. You, help Clark eat. Arabella glanced at one of her men. Right away. He hurriedly picked up the food, feeding Clark bite by bite. Arabella's phone had been vibrating for a while. It was Jack, so she swiped to answer. Jack hadn't expected to arrive a step too late. When he had followed the leads to the ranch, he found that the boss had already left on a plane. He had no choice but to call, Boss, are you still in Lidaria? I'm en route to the triangular zone on the plane. Arabella replied, then asked, What's up? The orphanage you asked me to investigate, we've made some progress. Jack reported, It's more complicated than we thought. You won't believe the whole orphanage. Jack paused, then continued, It's one of the experimental bases of T3 Research Institute, not just a living laboratory but also a terrifying breeding ground. T3 Research Institute is a terrifying medical organization that loves to research a variety of viruses and conduct experiments on children. The children who can endure these experiments are recruited by their headquarters to become part of their organization. In their growth trajectory, they often need to carry out various tasks. They need a normal identity to cover up their private actions. Therefore, the orphanage director will arrange them into normal families, allowing them to have a seemingly everyday life on the surface. All foster parents have no idea how terrifying these adopted children are. Jack sighed, on the surface, they are like other children going to school, have excellent grades, and are popular, but in reality, they need to report back to the organization regularly, completing various tasks assigned by the organization. At this point, Jack added, these people have never experienced the warmth of a family since they were young. After being adopted, they usually develop feelings for their foster parents, which becomes a weapon for the organization to restrain them. The glimmer in Arabella's eyes darkened. You mean Carol might be a part of T3 Research Institute? Very likely. Jack affirmed, and I suspect she must have some leverage against the orphanage, which is why the Research Institute is desperate to catch her. But I've fought with those guys, and their methods are not the Institute's. Hearing Arabella say this, Jack also found it strange. However, the last time the people from T3 Research Institute targeted you, they caused us quite a bit of trouble. We lost one man, and another got injured, so we have a score to settle with them. Arabella knew that once she was targeted by the people from this research institute, she either obediently served them, or there was only one outcome, a dead end. Over the years, no one who was targeted by them ever escaped. Could Carol also be one of them? You said earlier that T3 Research Institute has a headquarters? Arabella asked again, "Where is it located? Is the headquarters also called T3 Research Institute?" "I'm not sure." Jack always felt this matter was like a huge net, trapping many people. What they had discovered was only the tip of the iceberg. "Continue investigating, and I want results as soon as possible." "Yes, boss." Over 10 hours later, the plane landed on the mountaintop of Mafia Flames territory. Clark was awakened by the sound of landing. He endured the pain from his wounds and got up to look out the window, only to find dozens of people with weapons waiting for them. This was bad. Had their whereabouts been exposed? Were the people hunting Carol already lying in wait? Knock, knock, knock. There was a knock on the door. "Clark, we've arrived." Hearing his sister's voice, Clark managed to get to the door, opened it, and said somewhat heavily, "Bella, we're surrounded. While the plane door hasn't opened yet, shall we fly somewhere else to land?" A few question marks popped up in Arabella's mind. Surrounded? Who would dare to surround them at their own base? "Look, those people have chased us here." Clark's gaze indicated outside the window. Arabella was even more confused. This was Mafia Flames territory. Even if those people were audacious, they wouldn't possibly show up on the mountain top. Not to mention the mountain top, they probably wouldn't even make it past the front door of Mafia Flame without being taken care of.
Thank you for listening. If you have enjoyed this story, please like and share so others can see it too. Also hit the subscription button and notification bell so you can be notified on our next release. Thank you for your support. God bless you.